Hey guys, I'm Garrulous64, and let's talk gimmicks. With Kirby in the Forgotten Land being the first totally 3D entry to the series, I'm not quite sure it needs like a standalone gimmick to market it, because I think the third dimension is a pretty big leap as it is. As I mentioned in the intro, I have not played the game yet, so you don't need to worry about spoilers here, but there will be spoilers for the rest of the Kirby series, just in case you haven't played games over the last 30 years. I don't know if you've been living under a rock. What are you doing? Play Kirby! I'd also like to point out that I'm only going to be talking about mainline games today. There are not going to be things like Epic Yarn or, let's say, Canvas Curse in this video, because those are very clearly spin-offs. They don't tackle the usual platforming style, and obviously those come with gimmicks of their own. I want to talk about all of them at some point, though, because they're all really, really fun, and I have a lot of nostalgia for them. But before we start, it would really mean a lot to me if you could like the video, comment, share, subscribe, all that kind of stuff, because it might seem sort of annoying for people to ask, but it really does help us a lot, especially when people don't like certain topics on a channel. This video is gonna be like dead on arrival if people don't help me out here. So I would really, really appreciate it if you enjoy the video. If you don't enjoy it, let me know down in the comments. I'll take it. I'm a big, strong man. But yeah, this isn't a command, it's a cry for help. Taking it back to 1992 now for the release of Kirby's Dreamland, the pink puffball's first adventure. And of course, we all know Kirby today for his amazing ability to suck up enemies and then copy their abilities, but for those who are ignorant or just blissfully unaware, he didn't actually start out with that ability at all. Of course, these days, he inhales like Gordon Ramsay and becomes the greatest chef in the world, or he inhales like the little sleeping guy and just falls asleep. It's a pretty big dichotomy there, but in the original game, Kirby's all about the suck and then the blow. I know that was the lowest hanging fruit you could possibly go for when talking about a Kirby game, but I couldn't help it. That fruit looked so good. Since there's not a whole bunch to talk about in terms of gimmicks here, I guess you could say Kirby's inhaling and then spitting out of the enemies is technically the gimmick of this game, but it's not like something huge and flashy like later on in the series, like, you know, the big sword. But it's still something, I guess, they used for marketing, and it sets it apart from the other platformers at the time, so that's what we're here to see. But Kirby's sucking up of enemies in this game is very unlike the big sword, because you use this all the time, and it's not just an incredibly situational thing to clear out certain obstacles. I know I will stop talking about the big sword now, I'm sorry, but it's just so big. This video might feel very scatterbrained, but I told you it's not a full review of each title. Now we're moving on to the second ever Kirby adventure, which is Kirby Adventure on the NES, which I'm going to primarily show footage from Kirby's Nightmare in Dreamland because I'm super nostalgic for it, and it's a remake of that game. This is where Kirby's main gimmick for the entire series is introduced. We have the copy ability, and this is something that I think about a lot, because if, let's say, Kirby's Adventure had flopped really hard, right? I'm wondering if Sakurai and the team would have been like, yep, you know what, back to the drawing board, I guess, and like, maybe done away with the copy abilities? Like, I know that was a really good idea, and obviously it did catch on, but it just makes you think, right? Because some games will try new things, they don't catch on at all, like, I don't know, some of the stuff you might see in like some Zelda games, like Spirit Tracks or something, right? Like, we've never seen Link on a train again, because now he takes, probably his private jet because he's got so much money. But obviously it works like this. Kirby inhales an enemy, takes the power, and you can use that power for as long as you don't get hit too hard, because if you get hit too hard, that thing is gone. You gotta chase it down, it's gonna be bouncing all the way around the freeway, it's gonna be dangerous. This being Kirby's first ever console title, the game is also a lot longer than its predecessor, and once it was remade as Nightmare in Dreamland and GBA, it got a pretty rad multiplayer mode that I can't show you because GBA emulation multiplayer is really annoying. And it also received a bunch more minigames, and my personal favorite, the Meta Nightmare campaign, where you play the entire game again as Meta Knight, who has now, like, inherited the curse of the protagonist. Because when you fight someone in a campaign, right, they're obviously super strong, final boss mode, but when you play as them, all of a sudden they can get knocked over by a simple gust of wind. How the mighty have fallen. Now, as tempted as I am to talk about Amazing Mirror directly after Nightmare in Dreamland, obviously we have to jump back to Kirby's Dreamland 2, which is the actual next game in the series, in which we keep copy abilities, and Kirby's newest gimmick is that he has friends. Man, I wish I had that gimmick. Introduced in Dreamland 2, we have Rick, Kine, and Koo, the animal friends. We have Rick, the hamster, who is gigantic, and I actually love him. He's my favorite character design in, I think, this game. We have Koo the owl, who is another very good character, and then we have Kine, the almost completely useless sunfish. And I say that because he is really only useful in water, so I say just leave that fish behind, Kirby. We've got bigger fish to fry. In Dreamland 2, there are a lot less abilities than in Kirby's Adventure, but thankfully, as you use the animal buddies, they actually change Kirby's copy abilities in unique ways depending on who you're piloting. So for example, if you have the umbrella ability with Rick, he puts Kirby up in the air on the umbrella to attack things above them. Koo will do this like crazy mock tornado thing with Kirby, and it's probably one of the most busted abilities in the game. And Kine will just do exactly what Kirby usually does and just throws it out in front of him. And I don't know, man, I would ask you to kindly give me back my cool owl friend because you were useless. Hey, you guys want to see a really crazy quality jump? Welcome to Kirby Superstar, the first Super Nintendo Kirby game, and man, going from the Game Boy to the Super Nintendo sure looks good. This game is one of the fan favorites because it has one of the coolest gimmicks out of all the games, I'm pretty sure. In that being, it's not just one game, it's like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games, and then even more if you're playing on the DS remake, which is even better in my opinion. When you boot up the game, you got things like Spring Breeze, Gourmet Race, The Great Cave Offensive, Meta Knight's Revenge. It's definitely a dream, not a nightmare. And each of these game modes actually has their own set of rules and gimmicks of their own. Spring Breeze is a very simple remake of the original Kirby's Dreamland, except now there are copy abilities. Dynablade has a world map, and it has secrets you can discover. Great Cave Offensive is this giant open world level where you hunt for treasure, and it is really, really fun. And then you have something like Gourmet Race, which is sort of like a side mode where you race our Lord and Savior King DDD to the goal. And man, like, what else could you want? This stuff is so much fun. This game also has the honor of introducing everyone's favorite homicidal jester, Marx, who gets Kirby to go on this crazy adventure through the cosmos, and the main gimmick of Milky Way Wishes is that you hunt through all the levels to find copy abilities, and then you can switch between them at will, which I think is a really fun idea, which is sort of explored later on in Kirby Squeak Squad, but it's nowhere near as good. And if you didn't think that was enough, this is also the first Kirby to introduce co-op, because whenever Kirby has an ability, he's able to make a helper character by sacrificing that ability so the second player can play, or it'll just be an AI companion that is probably not very useful to have around, but they can't be as bad as the ones from Amazing Mirror. I definitely see why people say that this is the best game in the series, and I almost agree, but honestly, another Kirby game sort of captures my vibes a little bit better, so we'll get to that in a little bit. Again, on the Super Nintendo, we have Kirby's Dream Land 3 this time, and it is boasting one of the most gorgeous art styles this series has to offer. Everything looks like a cool little crayon drawing, and oh my god, it has not aged a day, I tell you. The gimmick here is actually a bunch of reused stuff, because what we have is co-op with Kirby's new friend Gooey, who is one of the best characters in the series. I guarantee it, you can't fight me on this. And we also have the introduction of more animal friends in addition to the 3 we had before. So in addition to Rick, Kine, and Koo, we now have Nago, Pitch, and Choo Choo. I don't know what Choo Choo is. I think she's supposed to be like an octopus. But it doesn't matter because yet more copy abilities are available, and all of these animal friends also change up how they work, and some of them are just ridiculous. Like this one with Nago where he just like he just slams Kirby into the ground and causes earthquakes or something. It's insane. This game is also the first to have some kind of level objectives where, for instance, in this first stage, you're supposed to get through it without crushing any of these flowers, and the flower at the end will be very happy with you. But as I was trying to not hit the flowers, I literally hit every single one, and the ones I didn't hit, Gooey ran over. So, I think this is a chaotic evil Kirby campaign I'm playing. Whoops. I mean, Kirby's pretty close to being chaotic evil anyway. Like, he just steps on one more flower, and then it's like alignment shifted. Jumping ahead to a new console yet again, we have Kirby 64 The Crystal Shards, which is actually a game I ended up enjoying a lot. I hadn't played it before this. Aside from how slow Kirby runs around, however, I feel like that was a huge problem, and there's actually a mod out there that increases his speed. I would actually recommend playing that if you want to try this game out. The main gimmick of this one is the coolest thing I think they've ever tried, which is copy ability mixing. Once you have an ability, Kirby can pull it out of his brain and then throw it like a ninja star at another character, and if it's a copyable ability, if it's a copyable ability, you get this fusion of abilities. If you do Cutter and Fire, you get like this gigantic flame sword, which is the best thing that's been in any Kirby game ever. Like, you're an actual menace now. Like, literally, if you just like move a little bit, the sword will hit people because it always has a hitbox. I almost feel bad for things like I fought the dark matter possessed DDD, like he didn't stand a chance. You also have things like spark and ice where you just turn into a fridge, and that would be a really useful power for the real world because I hate walking upstairs to go get a snack at 1 in the morning. It also has the gimmick of looking for collectibles in the levels yet again, because there are 3 crystal shards in each stage and you need to find them all, probably to get some good ending. I haven't finished it yet. You also end up finding a bunch of friends for Kirby to tag along, including King DDD yet again. He actually joins up, and you get to play as him sometimes in certain sections, and I wish I could just play the whole game like this. Foreshadowing? I also just have to highlight, this is not a gimmick, but I love the cutscenes in this game, because seeing Kirby and all of his little friends interact is super, super wholesome. And I would really like more of this in the future. The King DDD model in this game is actually brilliant, by the way, and I'm very glad to see that in Lost Forgotten World, whatever it's called, we're moving closer to that again as opposed to what he looked like in Star Allies, because geez, that was a horrible model. Except for the buff version, because that was pretty funny. Like, good for him. He got some mad gains in between these 2 games, like... Here we have yet another huge jump, however, because I talked about Nightmare in Dreamland and Kirby's Adventure at the same time. We have Kirby and the Amazing Mirror, where the main gimmick is that Kirby's been split into 4, so now everyone is f***ed. If one Kirby can kill, like, eldritch gods, 4 Kirbys? Are you kidding me? Like, literally, if they do go evil, God, help us. This game is basically, if you can imagine it, a gigantic version of Great Cave Offensive, because it is just this gigantic open world where all 4 Kirbys can run around in totally different places and then teleport back to each other if the need be. Other than that, though, there's not really a whole lot of gimmicks aside from relying on this 4-player gameplay for certain obstacles. And I'm not saying that you really need to have 3 other human players to get the most enjoyment out of this game, but the CPU players are a little bit lackluster at even, like, the most simple of tasks. Like, I couldn't even get this red Kirby to come down a ladder and follow me into the next room. Not that I needed him, but I know, it's just fun to have some companionship here and there, you know? So this isn't something like a Zelda's 4 Swords where you need to have 3 other players, but that's probably where you're gonna have the most fun. Like, when I was a kid, this was the game that I most wanted to play GBA multiplayer with, and I really only got to do it like 1 time, and that was not nearly enough. I'm also kind of jealous of Kirby because, like, I didn't get a cell phone until I was like 16 and it looked like this. But Kirby's over here that's got a cell phone that can, like, teleport his 3 best friends to him whenever he wants, and it's like, damn, dude, that would have been really useful when I couldn't drive around and also when gas wasn't $1 million. Kirby Squeak Squad is actually kind of a weird one because it is the first mainline Kirby game on the Nintendo DS, but it doesn't really look like it is. I'm not saying that the GBA Kirby art style wasn't peak Kirby design, because it was. That was like literally the second best art style the series has had. But it's kind of weird that the DS version doesn't look a whole lot different. But on the other hand, the gimmick of this one is actually really interesting because instead of having some like big flashy thing, we have the bottom screen, which actually shows us Kirby's stomach. And apparently we were lied to because it's definitely not infinitely large because it can only hold 5 things. But what it holds is you can carry copy abilities around and switch between them whenever you want, if you have, you know, enough to switch between. You can also carry food items to heal yourself, and you can mix these things together to actually get, like, stronger things, or just mix abilities to get a random one. This is also where you hold the game's other gimmick, the treasure chest, because yet again, we are going to be looking through all these levels to find treasure chests to try and get them away from the Squeak Squad, which is Daroch, Storo, Spinny, and Doc, I believe. I think that's all of them. They will chase you once per level, and then they will try to take a chest from you, but honestly, they're not threatening in the slightest, because you can literally just back them into a corner and fry them till golden brown. I guess Mouse is on the dinner table tonight, Kirby. But anyway, these treasure chests have things like spray paint, so you can change Kirby's color. I'm always a huge fan of that. You can get more heart containers, sort of like Zelda, and increase your health, not like you're ever really going to die too much unless you miss a chest. And yeah, it's just like a fun little collectathon. And this is probably one of the games I played the least amount aside from like Star Allies. So when I started playing this to collect footage, I actually got hooked and I ended up 100%ing it in just a day and a half. And it was not hard. It was definitely one of the easiest Kirby games I've played, but I had a fun time. Like, it was a very fun, easy romp. So if you haven't played this one in a while, I would say go back to it, give it another shot. Plus, I just really like the Squeak Squad. I think they're really fun and well-designed characters. And it's just like, I don't know, I guess I could just say the gimmick of this game is mouse and stomach. Alright, now we're back on a main console again. It's the Nintendo Wii Kirby game, and this one is actually kind of interesting because it includes a lot of references to a canceled Kirby game on GameCube from a very long time ago. Like, when I was a little kid, I actually found this footage of Kirby GameCube that was like a canceled game, and I was like, man, that looks really fun. I wish I could play it. And then Kirby's Return to Dreamland came out, and I was like, oh boy, I can play it. Unfortunately, though, this is where the gimmicks start to become a little bit ridiculous, because, you say it with me, everybody, big sword! My problem with this is the Ultra abilities are extremely situational. They're only really used in very specific places, and it's basically just to clear some debris so you can go into an alternate dimension and fight a weird circle. See, instead of having something fun like the Animal Friends, which I guess were a little bit situational, but you could take those between levels. I don't know, it just rubs me the wrong way, because they're like, look at all of this cool, flashy, new stuff, but you don't get to use it unless we let you. I don't know, it feels a little silly. Like, I'm a lot more excited that this is the first Kirby game that really shows off, like, how good 4-player multiplayer can be by having Kirby, Waddle Dee, DDD, and Meta Knight in the player slots. They all have different abilities. I just wish you could play as them in single-player mode, because even though I found an AR code to try and play as DDD, the game would just crash when I tried to load it. And I assume some areas that require the Ultra abilities wouldn't work, which is a big oversight on my opinion. I wish you could just play as the other characters. But I'm very glad to say that this game cements these 4 characters as the Dream Team. And that is a joke about where they live, because they live in Dreamland. So yeah, Return to Dreamland, very good game, but also has some lame things about it. But you know what's not lame even a little bit? My favorite game in the Kirby franchise, Kirby Triple Deluxe for the Nintendo 3DS. Everyone clap. Clap now or else. Kirby Triple Deluxe is the first Kirby game on the 3DS, and if you look closely, for those with eagle eyes, Triple Deluxe TD 3D. This game also has a very flashy gimmick, but in this case, I'm actually totally on board with it, because Hypernova Kirby is a really interesting extension to Kirby's base moveset. When Kirby inhales a Hypernova fruit, he will get the ability to suck like never before, and you can just use this for crazy set pieces where Kirby's inhaling huge things, and quite frequently they use it for very fun puzzles where you need to actually think about how these things will work. There's a lot of physics stuff where you gotta like pull things with the Hypernova, or use it to like block things, or actually use it during a little mini-boss fight where you gotta throw blocks back at a mole and you just barely miss him every time, and I was getting a little angry. There are also, yet again, collectibles in every level. This is gonna be a staple throughout the rest of the franchise, I believe, where you gotta collect these things, and I think they open extra stages, but otherwise they're not, like, mandatory. But this game looks great, it plays great, it sounds great, everything about it is perfect, and I cannot believe how good they did with this game. And I'm not going to speak too much about it in this video, because this is one of the Kirby games that I most want to review in its own video. Because hell, this even brings back the concept of the Meta Nightmare mode, but in the form of DDD Tour, so you can play as King DDD throughout the entire game. Oh my god, I mean, like, can you see why this game is perfect? It's literally perfect. Alright, we're on the home stretch, jumping over to the other 3DS Kirby title, Planet Robobot. This game is another fan favorite because it is a very nice evolution of Kirby Triple Deluxe, but I still like that one a little bit more. The main gimmick of this one is that it's pretty much the exact same thing as Kirby Triple Deluxe, complete with the jumping into the background and foreground, like I forgot to mention in the Triple Deluxe section, but it's a 3D game, so of course you gotta do that. This game introduces the Robobot armor, which Kirby steals from someone very early in the game, and then he proceeds to just decimate everything in his path forever. Because this Robobot armor can just, like, what can't it do? It can jump, it can punch, oh, it can copy abilities just like Kirby, so it's got a million different things, sort of like the Animal Friends. So you copy fire, and instead of breathing fire, you got flamethrowers that could just mow down everything. Like, this armor gives you such a sense of power in this world, and it's funny because it's not like Kirby didn't feel powerful already, because we know that he's like a god of destruction. But with this armor, again, like, if this dude went evil, uh-oh. Other than that, there's not too much to say about it aside from you can customize the armor with stickers you find throughout the adventure. It's not as in-depth as I would have hoped it would be. You can only have 2 stickers on at a time, but there are a grand variety of stickers and a lot of references to the anime, which I'm very happy about. And then we have a retread of Meta Nightmare mode, where we play as Meta Knight, and he is stronger than Kirby and the armor put together, which is insane. That makes him, like, very strong. And that basically takes us to the modern day, where we have Kirby's Star Allies for the Nintendo Switch. This is the first Kirby game that actually let me down a little bit, because not only is it very easy It is also very short and relies mainly on replaying things, which I am not super into most of the time. It is a pretty game, but it kind of gets in the way of my brain that it's not 60 FPS, which kind of bothers me a little bit. But also, the gimmick of this game is basically just the stuff from Superstar again, where you can take your enemies and turn them into your friends, and it's 4 players. Except the AI is actually a lot better this time around, which I can commend. You also have 8 billion dream friends. Most of them actually have tried to kill you in the past, but we're friends now, so it's okay. The playing as these characters in the extra mode where you replay all the stages is neat. It's kind of like DDD Tour, except you get like these little boosts, sort of like in Kirby Air Ride, and you try and complete the levels as fast as possible. And I do like all the fan service, it's just, it didn't strike the right chords with me, unfortunately. Very decent game, though. If you like 2D Kirby, you'll probably like this. Just beware that it's not, like, the most extravagant thing in the world. And that's gonna be it. We're at Forgotten Land now, which the main gimmick of this game, in my opinion, should be that it's 3D. I feel like that's enough to set it apart from all the other games. But I think they have it in their heads now that they need to include some big other thing, which in this case is Mouthful Mode, where Kirby can latch onto objects that are too big for him to inhale, and he can control them, sort of like he's got new mind control powers, which is actually horrifying. Like, what can't this guy do? He can cook, he can clean, he's basically a functioning adult. How do I do that? I'm not saying Mouthful Mode is going to be super situational like Ultra abilities, but in the demo so far, like, you can grab a vending machine, right? And all it does is open one area for you. And it's kind of like, okay, thanks, and then I abandon that and go on with my day. Like, I kind of wish I could have just ignored that. Like, it wasn't really super fun or interesting. Like, that could have easily just been an open passage and I could have walked right through. I'm really hoping, since it's the demo, obviously they're still teaching you how things work, hoping that it's going to get more extravagant than that, like it does in Triple Deluxe and Planet Robobot. But I'm a little hesitant on that point only, because the rest of the gameplay seems very fun. I really like the idea of upgrading copy abilities, I like the idea of collecting the Waddle Dees for the Waddle Dee Town, and my god, I really hope it just turns into Friday already so I can play this game, because, oh man, it's gonna be so hard to break myself away from that to do actual work on videos. But anyway, thank you guys. I think that's gonna be all for my Kirby Gimmicks video. I know this was a very scatterbrained thing, but it was something I just wanted to talk about real quick because I've got Kirby on the brain this week. If you want to see more Kirby content where I go more in depth with each game, please let me know, because I would like to do that. Probably throw a couple games into each video. Maybe like the Dreamland trilogy, the GBA games. I definitely want to do a video on spin-offs, because there's a lot of them. But yeah, again, if you like this video and you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe, click the bell, follow my Twitter, and join the Discord to keep up with more Kirby and other things that aren't Kirby, because I do a lot of things. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.